The following is an A-Team PR production.
Welcome to the Free Range Texan podcast. We're kind of an escape hatch for everyday life. We know today's world has issues. Maybe that's just all the more reason to spend some time. So saddle up with a bunch of Free Range Texans. Here's one now, our host, Michael Shawn.
Texan, episode 46. There's a reason why the first word in our name is free. What a great show we've got lined up for you here, folks, on this episode 46. Singer, songwriter, recording artist, entertainer, Stetson Walker, our guest on the Free Range Talent segment of our podcast. We've got some of his music, too. We're going to address some personal free-range Texan business. Sharing with you may or may not be appropriate, but by now, we've begun to think of our listeners as family. So we'll start out with a short and to-the-point family meeting. Foxy the Wonder Dog's security services contract here at A-Team PR Studios has been extended for another year. I know a lot of you will be relieved to hear that. So we are now able to know that any attempts to breach our perimeter will be met with the usual agitated canine response. Oh, good dog, Foxy. Michael Shawn's Campfire talks about a real live good old boy that was a real one-of-a-kind cowboy that a lot of history books are quick to overlook. But trust me, my friends, he will be well remembered at Michael Shawn's Campfire on this episode. So I expect we better saddle up and let's get ready to ride. Free Range Texan podcast. It's no secret, we're kind of a different animal. We're continually being asked how the effects of a world pandemic, real or imagined, affect the future of our production. And like everyone else, we have been affected. Behind the scenes, we have been weighing our options. That's important to note because, like the rest of the world, we do have options. Just how we respond to circumstances we are now facing will shape not only the future of the free-range Texan, but for all of us, the rest of our lives. Our podcast is content-driven. To that end, some of our episodes may be a bit shorter for a time. But we say, let's hold our ground. And those of you with freedoms, guard them carefully in the days, weeks, and months ahead. And thanks for listening to the Free Range Texan Podcast. Time now for another segment of the Free Range Talent File. Brought to you by A-Team PR, bringing a host of creative media production and public relations services to our exclusive list of clients. Maybe you could hire the A-Team. And now, here's the next segment of the Free Range Talent File. On our Free Range Talent File, we have Stetson Walker as our guest.
I appreciate you having me on.
My head is spinning when I look at some of the people that you've been working with. Of course, you're on the Free Range Talent File because you're a very talented singer, songwriter, entertainer. Your people I've worked with and stuff I've done list for someone your age, it reads like a who's who. You are, to say the least, connected. Aren't you?
Well, I don't know about connected, but I've never been shy. So whenever I'm working a show or working with somebody, if I see somebody I recognize, I'll walk up to them and all of a sudden I'm their best friend.
I was noticing that you've not only had a record that has charted on Texas regional radio, and you've gotten your album that is out right now, Let Me Introduce You, has got quite a few nougats. You grew up, and your mom was one of the harmony background singers for Willie Nelson. Now,
Right.
How cool was that?
Oh, I mean, it was for somebody in country music. I mean, that's the dream. If you can't be Willie, you want to be in his camp. And I mean, I grew up around all of his guys and babysat me. And my joke has always been like I'd wander off when my mom would be recording out there, and I called him Cowboy Willie. And so David Zettner, who was his first bass player, he had recommended B. Spears. Well, my grandfather was initially the one who taught me to play guitar, but I credit David Zettner with a lot of my chord voicings and how I play, because I grew up listening to him, and he was just, I'd say he was one of my biggest influences.
Well, you've been taught by some of the best, then, is what it sounds like to me.
I was very blessed in where I came from. And what's the Jerry Reed quote? The trick to it is learning to hide who you steal from.
Well, okay, let's go to the next step then. There is, man, people, I don't know if they realize what a big deal it is, whereas an up-and-coming young artist, you get a chance to open for people that are literally rock star talent in the country western world. And will you name off a few of those and been on stage with?
Well, I played with Tracy Bird, Mark Chestnut, and actually this past year I did a show out at Chef's Barbecue with Randall King.
And those are all guys right now that are making big waves, particularly in the Texas music scene. Where do you record mostly these days?
Well, it's called Boiler Room Studios out in Westlake, out by Austin. It's for those music history nerds, it's Bill Ham's old building with Lone Wolf Productions. So we've got some of ZZ Top's old stuff out there, and every once in a while, I'll bring it into the booth and we'll use some of those amps to record on to get certain sounds out of them.
Well, so that people will understand that may not be totally familiar with the recording and the music industry, there is very little riff-raff in a place like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, for some of the shoots we did, we needed to haul some equipment out to the field, and we didn't have enough bags with us. And David Dickinson, it's his studio, he ran up to the I guess it was the attic out there, and he came down with some of Clint Black's old merchandise that I don't know if it had ever seen the light of day, and we loaded up those duffel bags with our gear.
So you've been writing some tunes, and you were telling me before we went on just now that you were looking forward to really getting produced some of the stuff that's been rolling around in your heart and your head for some time. Do you see that happening anytime soon?
Well, that's one of the things I'm working on now with the, given the quarantine, a lot of people have had some downtime. So I'm anticipating with a lot of songwriters, this is going to be just an explosion of songs.
Yeah.
But, with what I've personally been working on, I've been a huge fan of the way Brad Paisley puts together albums. And what I tried to do on this most recent one was fit the format of how he did his early work of coming out with, like, you've got your story songs and your party songs kind of at the beginning, and then ending more on I'll say bluegrass, almost gospel note towards the end. And so with this next project, we really focused on getting that, I'll say 90s country sort of sound. Where I'm the happiest is when I get to flex a little on guitar. And with my songwriting style, it's all over the place in terms of licks I'll steal from certain people and putting together all that sort of stuff. So I'm looking forward to getting in the studio and seeing just who we get to work with this time, because I got to work with my heroes for this project. So I'm looking forward to seeing.
Do you have a producer that you feel close to, that you like what happens when you walk into the studio with this person?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. His name is Larry Telford. He was with Point Blank rock band. And so he and I, when we get into the studio, he's the kind, he uses that, what is it? The Ella Fitzgerald method of he'll make you mad to get the best out of you.
I've known lots of coaches that do the same thing. But who are the people early on that really inspired you? Would it be fair to say the people on the radio?
Oh, right off the bat, Glenn Campbell. He, for me, was he was the first guy to make guitar playing look cool. And how old was I? I guess I was 11 or 12 when I finally learned to play guitar. My grandfather, he started me off learning all the open chords and all the 3-chord Johnny Cash stuff and all that. And I immediately wanted to jump into Wichita Lineman. So I can remember sitting at his house one summer, just sitting on YouTube and trying to figure out, like, okay, like what does this chord do and how do you stretch your hand to make it? And I didn't know the names of any of the chords. I just knew how to make them. And I tried to figure that. I guess in one way, that's kind of how I trained my ear, was sitting on YouTube and trying to figure out how Glenn Campbell did that sort of stuff.
I'm going to change the subject just for a moment here, but is there a young lady in your life?
Yeah, her name's Emma Dean. She's a student out at Berkeley in Boston.
Well, that's a ways from home, isn't it?
It was the weirdest thing, because for years people have been telling us to reach out to each other. And so finally I sent her a message, and turns out she's the female version of me. I mean, she can smoke me on guitar. She can out-sing me. And I'm having to step up my game if I want to compete with her.
Well, that sounds like a fun relationship. We're all hoping she comes back to Texas sometime soon. And would it be fair to ask you, how old are you now?
I'm 25. I'll be 26 in August.
Okay, so I just want to point out here, I feel like that I am talking to a guy that is at least in his 40s, the amount of people that you have worked with and the things that you have already done and the things you have going in your career, and you're 25 years old. This guy's making a mark, and you heard it here first, maybe. Stetson Walker is his name. You've got the song, Stetson, Say Hello to Goodbye.
we listened to probably, I'd say, a little over 900 songs.
Oh, wow.
And yeah,
Really?
it took some time. And I'm not joking when I say blood, sweat, and tears went into this album.
You've got a great video.
Yeah, well, the video was actually something I wasn't expecting.
It's fun.
My manager had come to me with that, and I thought we were just doing a photo shoot, and so I was a little caught off guard when all of a sudden we were doing a full-length video.
Hey, kudos to your manager. He knew exactly what he didn't want you to have time to overthink it. That's great. All right. So now we want to tell folks on our freerangetexan.net website, you can click on the blog there. And if you will go to our blog, we have pictures up and an article about Stetson Walker. But included in that article, you can click on your video. Say hello to goodbye. The same tune we're going to play at the end of our interview with Stetson here on the Free Range Texan podcast, but we'll also include that video because it's got quite a visual with it, and I'm in love with the pickup that's in it.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody will see that. They know what I mean when they see that. But so that was the story. You didn't even know you were going for a video shoot, and yet there it was. Right.
Well, the guy who, or the production company that came out and helped us with that is Zodiac Studios. I was so thankful to be working with those guys because they were giving me directions every step of the way, and a fan had brought that truck out to let us use for the video.
Yeah.
And if you look close on there, there's about 8 bullet holes from a 45 from this guy's ex-wife.
It's real, folks.
I didn't get much more country than that.
And the bullet holes were put there by the guy's wife?
The way I understood it. Yeah, my first question to him when we got out there was, all right, who was she? And I didn't expect there to be a story.
Oh, yeah, there always is. Oh, man. We want to share this with your permission, sir. Say hello to Goodbye, which is one of the latest releases off the Let Me Introduce You album from Stetson Walker. Stetson, thanks a million for being on the Free Range Texan, man.
I appreciate you so much for having me on.
Well, all right, so here it is. Say hello to Goodbye, Stetson Walker, on the Free Range Texan podcast.
Oh, yeah, that was great.
What'd you do? You had it all, and like a fool, you let it fall. You lost it all. I hope you had some fun. Now you're sitting here, drowning in a double shot of what might have been. Let me tell you, friend, it's only just begun. And while you're asking yourself why, say hello to goodbye. Yeah, I'd like to introduce you to lonesome days and lonely nights. Yes, you'll have to get used to all those tears in your eyes. Say hello to goodbye. You like waking up, staring there at your coffee cup as the sun comes up on your table for one. 'Cause now all you've got is time. Say hello to goodbye. Yeah, I'd like to introduce you to lonesome days and lonely nights. introduce you to lonesome days and lonely nights. Yes, you'll have to get used to all those tears in your eyes. Say hello to goodbye.
You've been listening to the Free Range Talent File. If you'd like more information about our guest, just go to our website at freerangetexan.net. Also, submissions to be interviewed on the Free Range Talent File should be sent to our website at freerangetexan.net. Hello, this is Michael Shawn. I wanted to take just a moment and tell you about something else we are producing here at the A-Team PR Studios. It's one of my other gigs outside of the Free Range Texan podcast. Now, while on our podcast, we cover lots of different genres and all types of different storytelling and music, this one thing I'm telling you about is pretty much for country music listeners. Being a Texas boy, that's kind of natural for me. So here's the scoop. Weeknights at 10 o'clock, Texas time, I host a show called The Midnight Express. It's on a new country music network that began at the beginning of this year. It is a worldwide entertainment network featuring the best in country music 24 hours a day. Incidentally, right now, it might be a good time for me to point out that Boss Country Radio is designed to provide programming to broadcast stations anywhere in the world. But in case you're in an area where a broadcast station has not picked up Boss Country Radio, it streams worldwide in digital stereo. You can connect to that at bosscountryradio.com. And from there, there's lots of ways to listen. Well, anyway, here's my point. If you like country music, I just wanted to recommend to you bosscountryradio.com, where every weeknight at 10 o'clock, you can listen to Michael Shawn's Midnight Express. I just figure it's somewhere else you and I could meet up. So if it's the Free Range Texan podcast or Boss Country Radio's Midnight Express, thanks for listening. Have digital microphone will travel.
Blankets, ho! Get 'em up! Move 'em up!
You're listening to the Free Range Texan podcast. Well, howdy, y'all. It's Michael Shawn. Welcome to our Campfire. Let me ask you a question. How did old bulldogs get their name? Who first called a bulldog a bulldog? Well, it's hard to believe, but those ornery natured critters that weigh maybe half as much as a sack of oats were first raised to fight ordinary bulls weighing nearly a ton. The sport, if you could call it that, was called bull baiting, and it was mostly a test of courage. Now, here's how it worked. The bull and the dog were put in a big ring, you see. And the first one to turn tail and run was the loser. The bull had size, weight, hooves and horns. On the other hand, the bulldog had speed, agility, savvy, and, most of all, teeth. The dog would sink its teeth into the bull's lower lip and hang on for the full ride. That's right. I said sink its teeth into the bull's lower lip while the bull itself whipped its head back and forth. With most dogs being snapped around like that, it would break the dog's neck. A bulldog, however, has a very short, thick, and sturdy neck. And if the dog hung on long enough, the pain would bring the bull to its knees. Bull baiting became illegal in England in 1835. Bull baiting was sort of put on the back burner for 50 or 60 years until on the American continent, this young cowboy, the name of Willie or Bill Pickett, came along. Now, right about here is when it would probably be a good time for me to fill y'all in about Bill Pickett. He was born in 1870. He was a handsome and rugged black African-American cowboy. Pickett was described by 101 ranch owner Zach Miller as the greatest sweat and dirt cowhand that ever lived, bar none. Probably the most important rodeo figure of all time, Bill Pickett invented bulldogging, the now lost art of throwing a steer while gripping it by the lower lip or nostrils with the teeth of the cowboy, which Pickett first performed while working with the Miller's 101 Ranch Show, was quickly becoming a part of history. That's right, you heard me right. Not the dog anymore, but now the cowboy holding the bull in the cowboy's teeth. Well, you can try to imagine. That sort of bulldogging was mighty rough on the dental work, you see, so it wasn't long before the game settled down to just wrestling the steer to the ground. During Pickett's rodeo career, he was sometimes assisted by a couple of unknown cowboys at the time. Their names were Tom Mix and Will Rogers. Here's an interesting side note. Old Michael Shawn's mother, when her maiden name was Betty Jane Bowman, rode with Tom Mix, while she and her daddy, my grandpa, raised and trained diving horses for Hollywood. So I kind of figure there's a slight connection between Bill Pickett and me. For those of you who don't know Tom Mix, well, he went on to become a big Hollywood star. And that other young cowboy that worked with Bill Pickett during that time, I guess y'all know him. His name was Will Rogers. He too became world famous. Bill Pickett died April 2nd, 1932. You see, the day he passed, he was roping a stallion, and it turned quick, reeled around on him, and the 61-year-old Bill Pickett got his head pretty smashed up. But our story doesn't end there. Fast forward to the year 1972. Pickett became the first black to be inducted into the National Rodeo Hall of Fame, and rightly so. He was also one of only 16 individuals in the 1993 Legends of the West commemorative U.S. postage stamp. Bill Pickett, a real, live, one-of-a-kind cowboy, and remembered here at our campfire. I'm Michael Shawn. Adios, my friends. Smokes, look what time it is. Where does the time go on these free-range Texan podcasts? A big hats off and thank you to our guest, Stetson Walker. Stetson's music is available on our free-range Texan House of Treasures there at freerangetexan.net. Plus, while you're at freerangetexan.net, you can check out our blog. And among other things, there are a number of pictures of Stetson there and the music video that we talked about. That's freerangetexan.net. Then click on the blog. You can share our Free Range Texan Facebook page. You can like us there, and we'll like you right back. It's an easy way to share our podcast. Another easy way is by sending folks our freerangetexan.net website. We have a podcast player on board right there. We're looking at May 7th rollout for the Free Range Texan podcast episode 47. It's scheduled for Thursday, June 4th, after dark, Texas time. They're already hammering on 47. I think you'll like it. By the way, if y'all got comments, we pay attention on email at info@freerangetexan.net. Thanks for listening, y'all. Foxy, get in the pickup. Take 'em home, sweetie pie.
Thank y'all for listening to the Free Range Texan podcast, produced at 18PR Studios, out yonder in West Texas, with our host, who's been voted the hardest working man in podcasting, Michael Shawn. Feedback or submissions to our program can be submitted on our website, freerangetexan.net. That's freerangetexan.net. This is Sweetie Pie, on behalf of Michael Shawn and the crew here in Studio A, where we're all looking forward to spending time with you on our next bi-weekly episode of the Free Range Texan podcast. Y'all come back now, you hear?
An 18PR production. End transmission.